Welcome, everybody, to the final day of new films for the Nickel Independent Film Festival.
My name is confusing, Devin, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. We have this is our final day of new films. They still will be available tomorrow, but this will be the last time here in the Winter Chalet chatting with filmmakers. I am joined here by Elling, Lien, the executive director of the Nickel Film Festival.
Yeah, we're gonna be sad to leave the cabin, but as we mentioned before, we're getting a little bit of cabin fever.
It's time for me to come down from the mountain.
But before anybody gets any cabin fever from the weather, we have a lot of great movies for you to.
We have a lot of great films. That was a great segue into me reading the list of the films that we have today.
Thank you.
We have two programs again. The first one features Behind the Glass by Mehdi Ivani, Beth, directed by Ava Bounds, Hell or Clean Water, local documentary directed by Cody Westman, who we'll be chatting with soon. Katinngak, directed by Glenn Gear in the second program, along with No Comment, directed by Jake Delaney and written by Trudy Mullins, who we'll be speaking with as well today. And Words Behind Berries, directed by Andressa Back, and No Visible Trauma, directed by Marc Serpa Francoeur and Rabinder Uppal. And we'll be speaking with Marc as well today. But first up, we're going to speak with Glenn Gear. Hi, Glenn.
Well, hello.
It's nice to...
The Nickel loves Glenn Gear.
We do love Glenn. We love Glenn, but I think this is our first time sort of meeting face-to-face or whatever you want to call this. Yeah. If you could tell people a little bit about your film, that would be great.
Sure. Unasakut, Glenn Gear Wunga. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Glenn Gear. I'm a multidisciplinary artist and filmmaker. I come from mixed Inuit ancestry. My father is Inuk from Alatuk Bay, Nunatsiavut, and my mother is Newfoundlander with Irish and English ancestry from Wesleyville. I work and live in Montreal, but I'm originally from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and that's where I'm zooming in today from Corner Brook. I'm on sort of vacation. So my film Katinngak Together really started with an archival audio segment that was of traditional throat singing, and that was a clip from the CBC archives, a recording that was done, I think, of Mary Sivurapi and Nellie Nunga. I'm not sure exactly where it was recorded. I suspect somewhere in Nunavut. Sometimes that information is missing from the archives. But in any case, I found this traditional Inuit throat song, and I thought it would be really fun to invest it with new life. And I work in a lot of experimental animation, and I decided to use the archival piece in a kind of fun, playful way, and have these indigenous animals kind of throat singing to one another. So I have like a caribou, a black bear, I think a husky, a seal. They're all sort of throat singing to one another, and it's sort of fun. Some of them are sort of predator and prey animals, but they're still doing this very intimate throat song. So, and it's all set against this kaleidoscopic background that's beadwork that I did. So beadwork that I digitally manipulated and made very kind of juicy, vibrant kind of colors.
The beadwork was yours initially. You did the beadwork yourself. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, sure. I actually I do like pop sockets on the back of
cool.
my phone. So that was I just took pictures of some small projects in beadwork that I did, and that's part of sort of my practice, my broader practice as well. I like to incorporate sort of indigenous knowledge, working with seal skin or beadwork, and incorporate that and manipulate that in a kind of digital realm or an animation realm as well.
Amazing. One thing last night, in preparation for this, I went on your Vimeo page and saw some other work, and animals are often seem to be a real recurring theme in this film, especially. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm really, my work in general often takes its inspiration from archives, be those audio archives or photo archives. And I'm really interested in stories of people and place, people and land, and people and animals, people, places, and animals, basically, and sort of how those relationships unfold. I think for a lot of my work, the animals are very playful. They're kind of cartoon stylized sort of characters, but they are as important as human beings, if not more important. And certainly for me, in a lot of my work, the land is also another sort of animated character or being. Like it has its own spirit.
Yeah, I think it really comes through in this particular film. Has that, you referenced your kind of broader practice. Has animation always been a part of it? Or was it, did it come later in time, or did you start with animation? What's your relationship to?
Yeah, what's that trajectory? Well, I did my BFA in Corner Brook, and then I moved away to Montreal and did my master's at Concordia. And I was at that time really invested in sculpture and drawing and some non-traditional painting, I guess. I never studied film or animation during the 8 years, I guess, of art school that I did. But it's something that found me later on. So after I finished my master's, it's like, what do I really want to do? I'm really interested in telling stories and narratives, and became really enamored with animation. I always say that animation sort of found me after I'd gone through all the training, I guess, that I'd done through school. So it was really a kind of passion or labor of love. And that's, yeah, I remember just doing little animation tests and I was hooked. The idea of creating a little world that can come to life under film and doing working with both digital and traditional processes was something that I just fell in love with. And so that, it's been, gosh, how long has it been? About 18 years, I guess, at least, that I've been working primarily on animation. Yeah.
And also, I'm also, obviously you've done some, you've led some youth workshops with us. I think also though, like not just with us, it's something you've done for a while. Yes. Yeah. How does that, leading those youth workshops in animation, how does that help inform your practice?
Well, it's a big part of what I do. I love teaching youth different animation skills and different filmmaking skills, and really gets into digital storytelling. My focus is primarily on Indigenous youth, and I love to give back to communities that, especially, with Nickel, you've been great supporters with me and other folks, getting some of those skills and teaching some of those skills through our youth, Newfoundland, Labrador. And that's been so much fun. I've also done it on the other coast, Bella Bella, BC, Ganawage, and other communities in northern Canada. But I love the idea of kind of democratizing the whole process of making a film, of creating these digital stories, of kind of demystifying the whole process, and hopefully spark interest with the youth. And I'm very much about, okay, this is how you do it traditionally. This is how you'd set up, an interview or do your edits and that sort of thing. But here's how to do it when you don't have many resources. Here's how to do it with your cell phone. You can still use whatever materials and technology you have at hand, but you can pare it down. So that idea of building capacity, especially within, again, Indigenous populations that maybe might not have access to that's really important to me. And it's something that I love. I get a lot of love out of teaching other folks. When you see that kind of interest and spark and in kids' eyes, it's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, I feel like you can feel so much love in your films. Like they're such like there's such a vibrancy to them, and so really really happy that we're able to share Katinngak with our audience. Is there anything you've been working on in the recently? You mentioned before the chat that your vacation has perhaps been hijacked by work a little bit.
Yeah, I'm working on some animated sequences for a feature-length film.
Amazing.
Which will hopefully come out in the next year. It's going to be really fun, really wonderful, and I can't say much more about it. I have a team that I work with in Montreal, so there's a lot of back and forth. That's sort of my main thing. I have a solo show on right now in Ross Creek in Nova Scotia, and I think I'll be doing a residency with them in October, and a few other things on it. And we're thinking about, the next Nickel Film Fest, sort of teaching kids along the coast. I think we'll select different communities this time. And so I'll be doing more puppet and animation workshops and digital storytelling. So yeah, things to come.
Amazing. Well, like Elling said, we're big fans of you over here. And really appreciate you sharing your film and your time for this conversation today.
Well, thank you so much, Devin. Yeah,
thanks,
I'm big fans of Nickel Film Fest, so yeah.
Lots of love today here on the last day of the Nickel.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. Have a lovely day.
Bye.
All right. Great conversation to get started with. And with that, we're just going to roll right into our next conversation, which is with a couple of different people behind the documentary Hell or Clean Water, director Cody Westman, along with two of the subjects of the film, Sean Beth and his partner, Lien. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. Right off the bat, Cody, maybe as director of the film, can you tell us a little bit about what the documentary is about?
Yeah, it's Hell or Clean Water is a feature documentary that follows Sean and Lien and a bunch of crazy characters around as they try and clean up all the plastic and debris that's been left in harbors in Newfoundland, and it touches a bit on the world problem, but it really is a centered, focused story about Sean's efforts and sort of how hard it is to get this type of thing off the ground. And Sean just had reached out to me because I do a lot of corporate and commercial work, and he wanted to sort of get a video going of his efforts to date and sort of spread the word. And the line that just got me was like, in the first year I've removed over 15,000 pounds of trash by myself. And I said, man, like that's a story. That is the story. And the idea was to try and follow, just how far could he get in the time that we had, in a couple of years, like how far could he get and how hard would it be and what would he have to give up to get it there. And this is the result.
It really is. You see, like, some of the images in the film are pretty astounding. Sean and Lien, obviously it's covered a little bit in the film, but if you could talk about how you kind of came into this mission, because it's a real it's a big task, I will say. What sparked this passion for you?
Well, for me personally, Clean Harbors Initiative was a result of swimming over all this trash for like 21 years while harvesting sea urchins. So I did that for 21 years, and every day just swimming over all this trash and not seeing anyone get involved to clean it up or whatever. I got to the point where sea urchins was not the thing I wanted to be at anymore, and I was pretty much obsessed with being in the water. So I wanted to stay in the water, and I decided to try to do some cleanups just to bring the awareness to the problem, with the hopes of getting more people on board.
Yeah, I think this film does a pretty amazing job at. I certainly did not realize just how bad of a problem it was. Cody, was there a moment for you where you were like, "Wow, this is an issue that people need to learn about"?
Yeah, I mean, it's we think of it I follow the world problem quite a bit, and a lot of the stuff that you research, and if you're into those kind of streams and you're following environmental stuff, then you're tuned into things from Hawaii and Africa and all these other places, and you're seeing these football fields full of rope and everything, but you just don't really think about your backyard in a way. Like, we are a small place in the world, but we're part of the world, and so I didn't really know how bad it was at all. This was just something that all sort of developed as we hung out. Sean and I ended up hanging out more and filming more, and you just start seeing it. It's like, oh my God, it is in every harbor. And there's a line that's in the film by various people. We only use it a couple times because you don't want to repeat yourself too much. But I mean, out of sight, out of mind. And it's just, when you start going to a harbor, you walk down the wharf and you look down, it's like, oh my God, there's trash all over there and all over there, and next harbor all over there. And I guess the point that you say, did something really hit me? I mean, it's some of these stories that I heard that we weren't able to get in. I mean, sometimes people will say something to you at lunch and they don't want to be on camera, but guys would say, yeah, this was back in the day, in the wintertime, people would just throw their garbage on the ice and wait for the ice to melt. And they, I mean, can you imagine, right? In some places, people would put it out on the ice and then they'd light it on fire, right, yeah. Sean? and then, of course, it would never go. It would just burn for like an hour, and then, be like, we'd found one time in the film, we actually did find a huge thing of rope that had live crabs in it and everything, and it was half burnt. And you're just like, what are you thinking, right? It doesn't make sense to me.
Sean, do you find this attitude of out of sight, out of mind, is it starting to change a little bit, hopefully?
Yeah, definitely. This generation of kids coming up is not going to be responsible for throwing trash in the ocean like we did in the past. And I say we because I was just as guilty as most people. But back in the day, and in a lot of towns, there was no dumps or whatever. So when you throw it overboard, it just disappeared under the surface, and it was like to say, out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah. In terms of making the film, what was I find it really interesting actually that Sean, you approached Cody, because in one of the earlier scenes of the film, you talk about how much stage fright you have, but you come across so well spoken and very very comfortable in the film. Was that just like forming a relationship with Cody, or how did it feel to make the documentary over time?
Well, as time went by, getting to know Cody and Jenny, we built up a trust, and they made it really easy to be on camera. But now, mind you, most everything you've seen in that documentary was filmed 3 to 4 times, right, before we got it right.
Well, they did a great job, right? Because I think you're
my stage fright still exists today.
Well, your passion really comes through, because it is. I mean, just like I said before, just some of the images of you hauling up all those tires. It's. I mean, you would never realize that it's down there. Cody? Did you do much diving for the film, or were you above water?
Yeah, no, I didn't dive personally, but Troy Marr, my director of photography, he did actually get his dive ticket just to do the film, and which was really a testament to how much he wanted to do this and how much he put into it and stuff. And I mean, I'm a bit of a wuss, man. I'll tell you. Like, I bought a wetsuit last year, one of those half ones, and I thought, I'm gonna go in the ocean here. We're going on vacation to Eastport, and I said, I'm gonna go in the ocean for at least 10 minutes or something. I got in. I swear to God, I was in for about a minute, and my head was burning. Right, it was so cold. It's insane how cold it is. So, they're wearing dry suits and stuff. It's not like that. It's not as cold as I experienced, but I'm sure it's not comfortable. I certainly didn't do it. I just told them in general what I would like to see, and then just, wish them well.
It looks great. Troy did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Again, just seeing all that stuff down on the ocean floor was pretty mind blowing. Cindy, what was the documentary? What was the process like for you, having Cody around as much as he was with the camera?
it was pretty stressful for me. I'm not one for being on camera either, so stage fright is something we have in common.
Like I said, I think you both did a really, really fabulous job. I don't want to give away the ending, but obviously, I think it ends on a rather optimistic note. Sean and Sanine, how have things with Clean Harbor Initiative been going since we leave it in the film? Past year or so, I guess.
It's continually growing, and we're continually getting more support all the time. Just in the last 3 or 4 days, we needed, we acquired another diver, Andrew Scott. He's our second diver now, and he dives with steel tanks. So we put a request on Facebook for some donation of tanks to help us keep him in the water more. So I had lots for myself. I dive balloons. And within 3 hours, we had a gentleman from Australia donate $1,500 for 3 extra tanks. The following day, we had a guy here in Newfoundland, a local fisherman, donated a $1,200 sounder. Like everything we need now, we just put requests out there on Facebook, and within 48 hours, someone's got it bought for us, right? So it tells me that people definitely wants to see us continue doing what we're doing, and that makes it a lot easier, because right now I'm not footing the bill for everything myself. Pretty much the whole planet's starting to foot the bill, right?
Yeah, that's one thing that I think the film does really well, is just show the growth in support, the support of the community over time. Because at first it really feels like you're just out there on your own, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't feel like it what you were. So that's incredible. I'm really happy to hear that. Just to wrap up, maybe a question for all three of you. What do you hope people take away from this film?
Man, I just think that it's if the whole film is sort of really about one person doing something about it, and it wasn't made up or anything. This is a true story that, I think a lot of docs come from finding the right person or reading a story or something and being like, oh, that's really interesting. It's about one person doing something to help the future of the planet. And so I think, if it inspires anybody to do a similar thing in their own community, I'd be super happy with that. I'm sure Sean probably feels the same.
Absolutely.
Sean?
Yes. I'm hoping that when people watch the documentary and follow us and see what we're doing, I hope they realize that I started this with next to nothing, right? I have very little dive gear, I have no equipment running, and right now we have pretty much built a movement now that's spreading all over, right? So I hope more people looks at it and says, well, if this guy can do it with what he started off with, well, we with our big boats and all of our gear, we can do it even easier. So we're hoping that a lot more people gets involved and goes out and starts dragging up ghost gear, going out and doing beach cleanups or whatever. Just last few days, we were over in Long Harbor, and we steamed out to a place called Sankers Bay. And in that bay, we brought in one boatload of trash off the beach in a very short distance. I'm willing to bet there's another 20 boatloads there.
Wow.
Like, so many people with boats can be going out and cleaning up these bays, and not just that area, but all over Newfoundland is pretty much the same, right? So we need as many people as possible to get involved and help out with this.
Are you feeling optimistic though about it, or is it still a battle?
Definitely feeling optimistic about it. I got people messaging me every day saying, I want to come dive with you. I want to come clean beaches with you. But unfortunately, due to liability and everything, we can't just take people unless they're occupational trained, right? But I'm definitely optimistic with it. Yeah, it's growing, and it's going to go, I think.
Well, people are watching. Get out there, get trained. Go give Sean a hand. My God, if you see the film, he's doing hard work out there. I want to thank you all so much for chatting with me today and sharing the film. Really excited to be.
Thanks for the chat, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, so excited to be sharing with people. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right. Next up, we've got another feature doc. A lot of our festival has been shorts this year, but today we have actually two different feature docs that we're talking about today, and that is No Visible Trauma, and we're here with one of the co-directors of that film, Marc Serpa Francoeur. Hi, Marc. How are you?
I'm doing well. Pleasure to be here. Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, so really, really excited to be chatting with you today. I rewatched your film this morning. That's
a great way to start the day, huh?
It's a great way to start the day. Great way to start the day. Could you tell us a little bit about No Visible Trauma?
Sure. So I'm one half of Lost Time Media, which is a Toronto-based doc outfit. We do a mix of sort of linear and interactive work. So my partner and I, Rubinder Uppal, we both were born and raised in Calgary. Long time since we've lived there, but always maintained an interest in our hometown. And I would say back in 2015, what has slowly grown into somewhat of an obsession with the broadly speaking, brutality and accountability issues around the Calgary Police Service began, and sort of creeped from the police service to the oversight mechanisms, the accountability mechanisms, which in the context of Alberta include both, say, the Crown Prosecution Service, the police watchdog, the Alberta Serious Incident Response team. So basically, it's a feature doc and investigative piece. We focus on three main storylines, a couple of quite serious assaults, one including sort of an urban starlight tour kidnapping, and then a fatal shooting, a sort of a classic welfare check, classic in the sense of classically tragic, gone wrong. So that's a bit about the film. It's heavy subject matter for first thing in the morning, but yeah, I think it's we've been screening at festivals over the last year and have gotten some really strong feedback, and hopefully it's opening some eyes out there. Yeah,
I think I'll be honest. I think before watching the film, I had not realized, like, finding out that Calgary had more gun-related police deaths than Toronto or New York City or things like that was really very, very eye-opening. I will say. What at what point though did you mentioned it being something you were invested in since 2015? At what point did you think, this should be a film?
Sure. So it all really, it's actually interesting. The project started not as a film, but as an interactive. This is again back in 2015, sort of at the tail end of interactive web documentary, as a kind of not a fad, but certainly always something we've been interested in. In any case, for us, it started with the story of Godfred Adai-Namiche. He's a young man originally from Ghana. Who's featured in the poster. If you take a look, for example, basically we were introduced to him after his trial. Where he had been charged and tried for assaulting a police officer. The very same police officer, I think it's fairly clear from the video footage that emerged, in fact, assaulted him. And when we started looking at that case, it really spiraled in the sense that it wasn't just sort of an individual, with a terrible thing having happened. This was such an example of so many different these sort of safety accountability mechanisms breaking down along the way, and that really sort of piqued our interest in both these failings in the legal system as well as in the police itself. Jump ahead a couple of years to 2017, and there's a bit of a spoiler here, but basically another incident came out. Long and the short of it, we realized it was connected, and this started really making us ask questions also about the formal complaints process, because how was it that the officer in question had continued to be operating on the street when Godfred had made such a clear formal complaint about his behavior. So clearly there's a number of things wrong there. And you mentioned the shootings. I mean, that sort of, in this time, there was a whole bunch of reporting. Like, Calgary had never historically been a city where I think, we think more of like, well, at least in the West, Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon, these are cities, Edmonton even, with really sort of more notorious police departments. And Calgary had really flown under the radar. There's just a series of scandals, like internal scandals in terms of sort of bullying and harassment within the department, like police cultural issues that were coming out in these years. And then also some of these stats emerging. 2016 was a bad year. You had Calgary police shooting and killing more people than the 10 other largest cities in Canada combined. And then 2018, you mentioned, a year in which they shot and killed more people than either the New York or Chicago police departments. Now, I'll admit it, that's a bad year for Calgary and good years for those other departments.
Yeah.
But we're dealing with dramatically different rates of, say, violent crime. In Calgary, there was 17 homicides that year, not including the folks that police kill, because apparently those don't count. Chicago is a city with, twice the population and hundreds and hundreds of homicides. So, like, clearly something is going on there in terms of the behavior of these officers.
Did you face much resistance making the film? There, like at the end, there's this sort of list of people that you that did not participate, in the film. What was navigating that like? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it took us, we worked on the film over the course of about 5 years, and eventually did get, we spoke to both the former police chief, who actually is quite critical of a lot of the things that we are as well, and the current police chief. So just getting that sort of audience, the formal audience with the Calgary Police Service certainly took a while. They are not used to having to really speak to these issues in a public forum. There's really, there's a little bit of reportage, but not tons. In terms of, say, like the Crown Prosecution Service, ACERT, I mean, we were in touch in different ways with these organizations, but clearly these are not public bodies that felt a lot of onus to, provide somebody to kind of go and speak on the record. I think maybe for legal reasons or whatever it is. And it's interesting too, because the film, like we produced this originally for CBC Doc's POV, a shorter version of the film. So I think when we started, it was just like, oh, who are these guys who want to like forget about them? And as time went on and we had that backing from CBC, I think certainly we were taken quite a bit more seriously, but not enough to, like for us, the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service, the fact that they did not want to put somebody on the record to speak to these issues, we feel speaks to sort of really a climate and an attitude of impunity and being above the fray, so to speak.
Yeah, it's there's this almost kind of like deafening silence, I think, from some people in this film that like, you're that I think says a lot. Last year, obviously, we'll call it a burst of energy surrounding police violence and police misconduct, specifically in the States, after the murder of George Floyd. It touched a little bit upon in the film, but do you think that brought about some change or made people? Because I wonder if some people in Canada think it's like, oh, it's not a problem up here. Do you find that?
Oh, I mean, we certainly think that, like, historically, the attitude, oh, racism, police brutality, violence, these are American problems.
Yeah.
That feels to us, I mean, objectively not the case. I think as we're all increasingly, even those who are on the other side of things, more aware of. Yeah, and I think for us, I think with a lot of issues in Canada, that sort of deflection to America, is a big part of the problem, where we're not critically evaluating our own issues here as a result of that. Certainly the discourse has changed dramatically since we started down this path again back in 2015. The entire discussion of things that have now become quite mainstream in terms, defunding or reallocating resources, all this. I mean, none of this was on the horizon. Certainly not in Calgary. I mean, in a place like maybe Toronto and Montreal, these are cities that have had more, a bit more history of agitation and activism. But in Calgary, we'll see in the film, you have Godfred, the protagonist, sort of speaking at a huge Black Lives Matter vigil in June after June 2020. And I mean, that is it is a different world. And there is a whole, the response from, there has been some tangible sort of responses. I think, the Calgary Police Service was the first department in Canada to voluntarily offer to reallocate a portion of their budget to non-police emergency services, which I think was a very positive move. Not surprisingly, the Calgary City Council actually took the percentage that they had offered, and they're like, no, let's reduce that a little bit, which is just, people are, what are you doing? So, but again, things are on the radar. There is, and there's a lot of, there's been a lot of community organizing in Calgary, and I think that's really important. I think without that kind of pressure, without people showing up to police commission meetings and this type of stuff, it's very, very easy for these institutions to continue business as usual.
Has Godfrey been able to, has he found any justice since the film?
Oh boy, it's actually, Godfrey and I were on the phone literally Friday for an hour and a half. The saga continues. There's been no resolution. No charges have ever been laid in his case. His lawsuit continues to be unresolved. Part of what happened is, after the conviction that we see in the film, Lindsay, that officer, went on to resign in the face of the professional conduct hearing, sort of like these are the Police Act, the internal proceedings against an officer. And in classic style of a terribly designed system, when you resign, there's no longer any jurisdiction over you, which is totally beyond the pale. Like if you're a doctor, for example, and you're involved in some sort of malpractice, just because you quit your job doesn't mean that you're no longer liable for that behavior. This is a very bizarre thing that's been legislated, at least in Alberta. No, Godfred is hanging in there. We are still waiting on the sentencing in the Haworth trial, the trial that we sort of follow in the film, which is all sort of tied up with Godfred. He was called to testify in that. But it's been tough. I think that there's, you know, the maxim that justice delayed is justice denied is true, very, very true in this case. And as time goes on, I mean, it's there's a lot of pain, a lot of hardship in various forms, and he's hanging in there. But it definitely hasn't been easy. And I think for a lot of these institutions, I mean, time is very much on their side. It's very easy for them to stall, put off legal proceedings, not responding to you know, demands, for example, like there's response times when you file a suit and all that, and just those things go through the wind. So he's hanging in there, but it's been tough.
Yeah, well, I like we've said, it's a heavy conversation, but I think a really important one. Before I let you go, I'll ask you the same question I asked Cody and Sean. What do you hope people take away from it?
I think, in a general sense, just a basic awareness that many of us would like to think that our institutions, you know, are functioning well and are well designed and are sort of well greased wheels. I think that the police, at least in Calgary, I mean, and the accountability mechanisms is one example of that not being the case. I think it's really important for us this is the product of complacency, I think, and of a lack of examination of what's going, and of course, you know, mainstream society not listening to those who are often victimized by these you know, by these agencies. So I think just we would like folks in Canada to stop thinking again that these are American problems. These are very much problems, and none of what we're talking about are endemic to Calgary. These are problems that you find all across the country in various iterations.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this way. Policing, there's a lot of really easy fixes on a cultural level. I think just a basic sense, like if you're an officer and you shoot somebody and there's actually a potential that you're going to be charged and punished for that, I think that would have in and of itself very distinct results. But there's many other sorts of de-escalation tech. Canada, we're actually, compared to a lot of other Western countries, we're not quite as bad in many respects as America, but we're pretty close. And there's just no reason for that. I think the betrayal of trust of those who are entrusted specifically to protect us is a really horrible, a really toxic thing that has all sorts of tragic ripple effects and consequences. So I think it's high time that we in Canada start taking these issues seriously, because it just doesn't have to be this way.
I think that's very well said, which I also think speaks to the depths that this film goes to, and I really encourage people to check it out, because I think, yeah, a lot of lessons to be learned. We're having a moment here in Newfoundland as well, actually, this week. So I hope that people go and watch this film as some food for thought. Yes, thank you so much, Marc, for chatting with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. All right, we're speaking to now our last filmmaker of the fireside chats, and then I ski away off into until next year. I've got Trudy Mullins, one of the co-writers of No Comment. Hi, Trudy.
Hi, Devin. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Really happy that you're able to join me here today. Could you tell me a little bit about this film?
Okay, so this film was made with a 77-hour timed film challenge. And for those watching who don't know what that means that on a Friday night at 7 p.m., I am given a random genre, prop, line of dialogue, character, and then I have 77 hours to write a short film and include all those components in it and turn it in, edit it, score it, everything. So the film is called No Comment. The genre that we drew was drama, and it's a different take on what other victims of a school shooting would be. Essentially, that's what it's about. It's a young boy who is a school shooter, and we look at it as what would it be like to be the parent of that shooter, and what would the family be going through. A lot of times, we see a lot of families take a lot of flack for just being related to a shooter. And we wanted to show that they were also victims as well, sometimes.
What was it like, here at the Nickel, we host a lot of challenges. This is not made for a Nickel challenge, but certainly a lot of similar ones. We know the deal. We know what it looks like. When, that first meeting, when you're sitting around and you get your different prompts and stuff, what, how did you arrive at this story? How did it come about?
Well, we kicked around a bunch of ideas, and I'd had this idea in my head for a while, but I was hesitant at first to throw it out to the team because I didn't know if we could pull it off, and I didn't know how an audience might react to that type of film, because it's a sensitive topic. School shootings happen, way too much. And so we were sitting around, we were putting out ideas, and I put this one on the table, and Jake said, I really like this idea. And we threw out a few more ideas because I was still afraid and uncertain that, I'm like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. He's like, no. Jake said, no, this is the one we should do. So, we put a lot of faith in him. We knew he'd be able to pull off what we were looking for. So.
Yes, Jake Delaney, who directed this film, has had a couple films in our festival over the last few days. Going back though to the challenge aspect of it, were there any challenges? Oftentimes in these kinds of things, problems arise. How did the shoot go when you went to actually film it?
The shoot went absolutely wonderfully. The only issues we really had were the weather, but we kind of figured it, Newfoundland in November, it was going to not be very good weather. So we filmed the majority of the film inside one location, but it rained, it snowed, it hailed all on that day. So, that was really the only challenge we had. It went very, very smoothly. The only thing that maybe took a little longer was getting our actors on set at the right time. Some of them we had to leave and just, okay, you know what, we're still waiting. I promise you'll be up in a few hours.
A lot of the actors were young kids. What was it like directing those kids? Had they acted before?
Some of them did. My daughter Maggie is kind of an old pro at it now. She's done a lot of them. Judah Foote, that was his first time doing it. Young Cameron Wilcox, he also had some experience doing background work and that sort of thing. And of course, Jake Delaney's son also made an appearance as well. So
that's classic, indie challenge filmmaking. Get who you can. Your team, the core team of people who worked on it. Because I wonder sometimes when people go to do these challenge films, I think sometimes the biggest challenge is getting a team together, is finding people to work with. How did you guys come together to make this?
Well, I'd worked with Neil King previously on a few other projects and time film challenges, and I had helped Jake out with one or two of his in the past. And so it was really just a matter of going around and saying, hey, I have this thing I want to do. Are you interested? Sometimes people aren't able to come or they have to back out at the last minute. But for this particular challenge, I put the team together and I said, okay, here's what we're doing. And I put faith that nothing was going to go wrong and everybody was going to show up. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
I guess that's all you can do. Yeah. What would you say to someone who is maybe interested in making one of these challenge films, like For the Nickel, for example, but who's maybe hesitant or is nervous or doesn't think that they can do it? What would your advice to that person be?
go do it. I mean, I started doing 48-hour challenges on a whim. I had done community theater, volunteer, and I just happened to come across an ad that said, "Can you make a film in 48 hours?" And I thought, what's the worst can happen, you know? So I went out with a friend, and it was just the two of us who shared, the writing. I did the writing and producing. He did the directing and editing. And, that film, it won in the city challenge and went on to screen at Filmapalooza. And I guess I kind of got bitten by that. And I thought, wow, we can really do this. So if you don't think you can, you just got to go out and try. I don't care if you've never acted before, if it's something you always wanted to do, come find us. We're always looking for new people, you have to try.
Well, I love that energy. I love that spirit. I think it's a great sort of final note for the 2021 Nickel Independent Film Festival. So thank you so much for providing that and for chatting with me today, Trudy, and for sharing the film.
Oh, thank you, Devin. And thanks to the Nickel for providing the 48-hour challenges all year long.
Yes.
And for taking no comment on in the festival. The team was really excited, really happy.
Well, we're happy to have it. And thank you so much for chatting.
All right.
All right. Well, that just about wraps things up. Real quick though, Sean, I can't help but notice that you got a friend there, a little a little critter, and I would love to know that cat's name.
Go ahead.
That cat is named Chloe.
Chloe?
If she gets poking at you, tell you to smooth her down. And if you don't smooth her down, then she'll claw at you.
Listen, I know that everyone's sick of Zoom chats and all this stuff, and that we're all ready to be back in person again. But you know what? I will miss the pet cameos.
The pet spottings.
Yeah. Anyways, just wanted to give Chloe a little spotlight. And with that, this is our final fireside chat for the 2021 Nickel Film Festival. I want to thank all the filmmakers here today, all the filmmakers who spoke with me the last 6 days, however many days, 5 days, I don't know. I want to thank Elling for joining me every day. And Sandy May, who's behind the scenes, kind of helping orchestrate all this. Thank you, Sandy. All these films that we talked about today are available on our website, nickelfestival.com, for totally free. They will also still be on there tomorrow for free as well. So if you miss it today, or you have dinner plans, or anything like that, Sunday dinner, you can check them out tomorrow as well. And yeah, I think anything else I should add, Elling?
Nope. That's it.
That's it.
Thanks, everybody. Right. Go watch those movies.
Yes.
Have a great weekend.
Great lineup today. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.